Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This guy over here is Tim, and welcome to Second Legacy. Now, you may have seen us on our independent channels with this guy over here at Military Arms Channel and me at Langley Outdoors Academy, but we have combined to make a joint channel called Second Legacy, and the whole point of us coming together is to pass the blessing of the Second Amendment along to the next generation. Now, if you would like to grow with us, we would love to have you subscribe, like the channel, make sure you share it out, and turn that notification bell on. Like I said, we would love to have you join with us as we grow this together, and we are both very excited about it. But today we have something special. I've got some tweets from none other than Davey Hogg, the next generation of gun controller. But the twist here is Tim hasn't seen them. So what you guys are going to do is you get to witness me read him, Davey Hogg's tweets around the Second Amendment, and to get his genuine reactions, and then we're going to break them down one by one. So, Tim, are you ready? Because I'm excited.
I don't know if I'm ready for this, but let's do it.
You're ready. You're ready. No, okay. So on this first one, Mr. Producer, when I'm ready, when we're about to go, we're about to hit this first one. So, Tim, just let me read this whole thing before you react, because I know you're going to want to. All right, Mr. Producer, throw up number one, and let's hit it. You have no right to a gun. You are not a militia. When you're talking about your Second Amendment rights, you are talking about the state's rights to have what is today the National Guard. The modern interpretation of 2A is a ridiculous fraud pushed on the decades by the gun lobby. Your reaction, sir?
He's an idiot. I mean, where do I start with that? So let's go back in time about 20 years. Yep. And this collectivism was the argument of the anti-gunners, right? Mm-hmm. They kept saying, well, 100%. You know, the Bill of Rights protects an individual right in the First, the Third, Fourth, Fifth, all the way down to the 10th Amendments. But the Second Amendment really protects a collective right. It's the right of the state to bear arms against the people. Makes a lot of sense, the Bill of Rights for the states. And only one of the 10 deals with the Second Amendment and collectivism. So that was completely debunked. I mean, most anti-gunners have completely abandoned this argument. Decades ago, Congress has passed resolutions and the Supreme Court has passed rulings saying that the Second Amendment definitely protects an individual right. It's not even up for debate. So the fact that this moron is saying this, he must have been drinking heavily that night and going through like the Wayback Machine, looking at the Brady campaign's website from 1990, because I haven't heard that ignorant argument for a long, long time.
Dude, I knew it was going to be great, and that was a phenomenal response. All right, so now we are going to break it down a little bit more in depth, because my first reaction was as well the same roads you went down. I was like, wow, this is a bit of a rerun. We've been down this road before. Gun controllers consistently pushed this like 10, 20 years ago as the individual gun right did not exist. It was all about the state and the militia. And that's really what the intent of the founders was. Not to mention the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The militia, in reference in this statement, was because the people were the militia. It wasn't another branch of the state government. That's kind of like saying you're going to fight yourself with your right arm if your left hand gets out of hand. That it doesn't make sense on any level. And to your point, you so adequately said it. This has been settled. They don't even go down this road anymore. This is kind of like when they used to say assault weapons. They don't even do that anymore. When they get these things knocked off, they're completely debunked, they don't reuse them because they only harm their arguments. I mean, goodness gracious, like for me, when I saw this, that's the first thing I went to too.
And it's amazing. So the argument that the National Guard is the militia is a joke as well, because as you noted, the militia is the body of the population. We are the militia. That's the way it's been, especially if you go back to the 1700s and the very definition of what a militia is. I mean, at one point you had people trying to put an age range on it between 18 and 45. But now we have people living to 70, 80, 90 years old. I mean, you have a bipartisan group of politicians right now trying to raise the age before you can even retire and collect on your Social Security to 70. True. So, and you have, in the war in Ukraine, the Russians are bringing in 50, 60-year-olds regularly. So the notion that even those age requirements should be enforced or somehow used is silly. The National Guard is an extension of the U.S. Army. When you enlist in the National Guard, you go to an Army base, you go through Army boot camp. The weapons, everything that they use is all supplied by the federal government. That is not a militia. That is a federal army. Yes, the governors have control of them, but with the stroke of a pen, a president can take those guardsmen and guardswomen and deploy them, as they did after 20 years of war. How many guardsmen and women were deployed? by federal decree. So yeah, it just all around the argument is so asinine. It's laughable. If he wasn't somebody that the left held up as an example of the future of their gun control efforts.
Oh, 100%. This, just so if you guys are not familiar with David Hogg, this whole video is going to be a laundry list of how to debunk all the talking points, because he hits all the good ones and even throws in a little woo for garnish. But that was just the first one. Tim, I'm glad we warmed up on a good one. Mr. Producer, let's jump over to number 2 and see what he has to say about this one. Also, Bruin has to be one of the most illogical and stupid decisions ever put out by the SCOTUS. That 20 years ago, if turned in as a paper at almost any law school, would have gotten an F.
Based upon what?
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. Is he now professing to be a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer? This guy doesn't even know what the current political argument is. He's going back 20 years in the history books, digging up stuff that hasn't been used since then, because as you said, it's been debunked. It's silly. And now he's chastising the Supreme Court, some of the greatest legal minds our nation has. And he's saying that their decision was stupid. Boy, that's a great argument. Stupid, huh? Yep. I can think of somebody that's stupid, and it's not the Supreme Court.
Right, and that's the thing that jumped out to me too, is when you're going down this road of Bruin has got to be one of the most illogical and dumbest things ever. It would have gotten an F in my law school history class. Okay, why don't you sit down before you embarrass yourself? I mean, like the idea that you're equating a Supreme Court decision, the highest court in the land, to a term paper. It kind of shows you exactly where you're at. And what I said on my video earlier when I did it, tell me you're losing without telling me you're losing. Because the rants that you're witnessing right now, these are not rants of someone who is in a sound footing of an argument. These are not rants of someone who is making headway for their position and ideological purity. This is someone who is ranting because they are either not getting the attention that they want, or they are not gaining the traction that they want, or they're losing traction. If you go through something like this, you're going to lose a lot of supporters because it's completely unfounded. It's completely illogical, and it just makes you sound like you don't know what you're talking about. You're resorting to calling names. To me, this was a cry for help if I've ever heard one on multiple levels.
Well, I think all 3 points, he's suffering from all 3. The guy is irrelevant. You know, he had his 15 minutes of fame. He's trying to recapture that fame. He's trying to be controversial. He's posting this nonsensical stuff to Twitter, trying to rile up a certain group of people. And it probably works for that certain group of people. But the average American, the average gun owner is going to look at that and just chuckle. I mean, like you said, it's a cry for help. This is a guy that's desperately seeking attention. And the only way he can do that is to rehash arguments that have long since been settled. And he thinks he's being edgy and witty by doing it. And he's just simply not.
No, and exactly right. And before we go on to the third one thing that's incredibly important, I think you just hit on, you're trying to be edgy. You're trying to be witty. You're trying to remain relevant. The bottom line is the Second Amendment advocate groups, the Second Amendment, the supporters, the patriots, we are gaining ground by putting the right people in office to support these things at your state level, at your federal level. We are making gains across the board. If you just look at the state level fights right now for gun rights, there are consistent gains being had nationwide, all because we're getting politically active. And the reason that we're showing you this is not to make fun of an individual. Honestly, it's an irrelevant individual. But it shows you 2 things. One, that you are working and you are being effective, keep and stay the course. But the other is they're feeling it too. They will always tell you what they're afraid of. And things like the Bruin decision, things like the Heller decision, which is going to make an appearance here in a second, they will always tell you what they're afraid of because they go to mockery, they go to chastisement, and they honestly start stomping their feet.
Yep, and that's exactly what he's doing. You couldn't have described it better. He's stomping his feet. He's having temper tantrum and doing the hey, look at me stuff.
Yep, I completely agree. So now we're going to throw on the garnish of wow. So, Mr. Producer, if you could throw up number 3, and I quote of Mr. David Hogg, "If someone goes nuts and kills me for saying this, be sure to politicize the blank out of my death, and use it to pass as many gun laws as possible and reverse engineer FedSoc to take over the court system and overturn Heller and Bruin. And just for a nice little cherry on top, and drop my body at the NRA. Here's the address." Does that sound like a logical and rational based person to you? Go, Tim.
That seriously looks like the rant of somebody that's unhinged, mentally unstable.
Yeah,
when he's talking about being killed, who's going to kill him? Nobody's going after him. Nobody even cares he exists. The guy had his 15 minutes of fame years ago. And this, again, is him trying to be edgy and controversial and shocking, and it's just not working. I read that as you were reading it, and I was just thinking, somebody needs to get this guy some help.
Right.
I mean, that is definitely a cry for help. This fatalism, this insanity of, oh, they're going to kill me. Look at me. They're going to kill me. And then I just, by the way, take my body down to Texas and dump it on the front porch. Really? That's how you're going to win people to your side of the argument? This is your plan for arguing against the Bruin decision and the Heller decision? It sounds like the ramblings of either a wildly drunk dude or a wildly drunk dude that's mentally unhinged.
Well, right. And so there were two other pieces here that just stuck out like sore thumbs to me. The first one, you're going to take over the court system and you're going to reverse the two decisions on gun rights that you don't like. By the way, those are the two that are stacked on top of each other, which are giving us the wins that we talked about, because you're restoring the Second Amendment to its rightful place, bit by bit, inch by inch. So you're just going to take over the court system because you know better than the entire court system. You're just kind of the separation of powers completely gone. Let's really fix this for the right for Davey Hogg. That's the first thing that stood out to me like, whoa. The second thing that really bothered me is the part where he said politicize the instance that he referenced to pass as many gun laws as humanly possible. Like if you think about that, if you're out there, you're the Second Amendment supporter or you're not the Second Amendment supporter, because this show's angled at both. If you are not supporting this, think about what he just said. Have something terrible and tragic occur and then politicize it to infringe upon your rights as far as possible, and that would be worth it to me. Like, I think you said it right. There's something wrong here, and I don't think it's the Second Amendment.
No, I think that just reading those posts tells me that the guy, first of all, doesn't care about constitutionality. That's not even part of his argument.
Not wrong.
Now, he's saying that the decisions were stupid and stuff like that, but he doesn't elaborate as to why. Now, granted, Twitter limits how many things, how many characters you can use in a post. For the most part, they've expanded that, but it's not like he's going to write a novel about it. But it seems like he's ignoring the constitutionality argument. He has no argument against the constitutionality of this decision. All he has in his quiver is names and this fatalism. And like you said, we're going to take control of the courts. We don't really care what the Constitution says. We don't care what the greatest legal scholars the nation has on the Supreme Court, what they say about the Constitution. I just don't like their decision. Therefore, we just need to basically take over everything. Maybe he's insinuating by force. I don't know. But take over everything and force our will on the people and ignore the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Right.
Again, it's the ramblings of a madman. I mean, looking at that stuff, it almost seems like the guy's completely lost his nut.
Well, and that's I think the key point that we're distilling out here is everything that we're watching right now and everything that I've just shown as I'm reading these, it doesn't point to a constitutional argument. It doesn't point to a legal argument. It doesn't even point to anything sensical. This is going directly to emotionalism, fatalism, and dramatic flair. That's what this is. And that's the important piece. And honestly, one of the most powerful things about giving him a microphone and letting him continue to speak, because he's showing what the gun control movement is. He's not doing any favors to the gun control by doing this. He's only further bolstering our points of this is not constitutionally based. This is clearly based in fatalism. Like this is words and fatalism and pokey little words. That's all this is. But this is where Twitter gets great. I don't know about like 6 to 8 months ago, it got real great. I'm going to read you the last one here, and this is where it's going to get real fun. All right, Mr. Producer, number 4, please. Readers added context they thought people might want to know to this tweet. While individual opinions about the proper reading of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution differ widely and have for generations, the United States Supreme Court has ruled that it does protect an individual right to bear arms with certain limitations. So Twitter comes in swinging, and the Twitterverse says, Heller decision. And that's the ultimate thing. It's like you've got the Heller decision, you've got the Bruin decision. What else do you want? It literally says the opposite of what you're saying from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. He just got fact checked.
Right.
And this has no bearing on his mindset or his opinions. It doesn't matter that he's wrong. He doesn't care that he's wrong. He is doing what the far left has always done, and that's making all their decisions and all their policies centered around emotion, right? Just guns are bad. We don't need guns. Guns are evil. So let's just ban them. I don't care about your rights. I don't care about your safety. I don't care about the fact you may live in the country and or the fact that you may have an ex that's stalking you. None of that is important. All that matters is I want to take your guns away or I'm going to stop my feet.
Yep. No, it's just that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, and the thing I love about this is you've got such a microcosm, as you're kind of alluding to. Everything that we fight, everything that we meet on the battlefield of ideas, it's all in here. Granted, some of it is a little extreme, but legitimately, a lot of the points, as you said, and we've touched on, these were recycled points. If you don't have any more genuine points, and we've actually defeated all the points you brought forward to this point, if we're on the recycling stage, Tim, we're in a better place than I thought. Now, personally,
yeah, absolutely.
Personally, I don't think we're fully in the recycling stage because they're still ginning up new ways to do it. But that's why Second Legacy exists, to fight it. But this is so telling on much deeper levels. And this is why every single day, like, look at that one user on Twitter, straight up fact checked with the Heller decision, just went boop. And they don't have a YouTube channel. They don't have a microphone other than Twitter. And they did more damage to his argument than anything else. That's the power of the individual. And that's the big point here.
Yep. And I think that, as you said, he's really hurting their cause by going out there saying these crazy things, being so over the top with the name calling, the fatalism, all this stuff, and the proposed radical things of taking over courts and forcing their will on the people and all this stuff and drumming up old arguments that have long since been debunked. He's not helping them. And as you said, it's just they always tell you what they're scared of. They always tell you what's bugging them the most. And the fact that we've gotten these decisions, him and his ilk are absolutely on edge. It's pushing them over the edge, and they can't take it because they're losing the debate around our ideology, around our Constitution, around our rights. And they simply can't stand that because all, again, they have are emotion-based arguments. They can't argue the facts. The minute you hit them with facts, the minute that guy fact-checked them, or girl, I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but the minute they fact-checked them, I guarantee you went right over his head, and it just made him a little bit more radical. Like, how dare they? Oh, my gosh.
Right.
They just don't have solid footing, and his behavior is absolute evidence of that. It's insane. It's crazy.
100%.
They need to mute him. They need to, like, hey, dude, can you take a step back? Because you're not helping us here.
Well, right. I mean, I kind of don't want them to.
I don't want them to either. But I'm just saying, if you're on that side of the argument.
No, I gotcha. If I was an impartial judge here, I'd be like, whoa, Davey, you're not helping the boat here. No, I completely
give the guy a megaphone, put him out in front of every camera you can find, and let him repeat that silliness, because everybody's going to look at that and go,
Yeah, 100%. But that's and the kind of the last point in closing is that's exactly the point, isn't it? So the things that we talk about all the time, we try to root them in constitutional arguments. We try to root them in actual statistical fact. We try to point it back to something more substantive than just because I want or because I don't like. And that's the important part from the conservative side or the Second Amendment side or libertarian Second Amendment or Democrat. I don't care who you are. From the Second Amendment perspective, it's all rooted and founded in absolute history, fact, and text and tradition, if you really want to kind of with the Bruin decision. But that's the big thing. AOC, every time she gets on a microphone, something bad happens. Ilhan Omar, every time she gets on a microphone. Davey Hogg, take away his Twitter. I'm telling you, the more that they do this, the more that it bugs them, the more they will just spin themselves in a tizzy again.
Yep. Well, let's let them do it. I say we encourage it. Maybe I should jump on his Twitter and get in his feed and then start prodding him a little bit.
Please don't. Please don't.
I'll have to go look it up. All right.
Please don't.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We would definitely love to have you as part of the family. So please subscribe to the channel. Please share these videos. Let other people know that Second Legacy exists. We want to empower everybody that watches our videos to have the arguments that they need to engage with family members, friends, coworkers, to have that discussion, bring folks around to our side of the argument, let people know that we have a birthright in this country. And part of that birthright is the right to self-defense, the right to own a firearm. And it's just as American as baseball and apple pie. And with that being said, we will look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode, which is just right around the corner tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Thanks for watching.